I speak as first-hand witness. My father is one of the founders.
Viewers and subscribers, welcome once again to Think Tank TV. Now, some things are better left unsaid. But if there's anything I would ever beg you or plead with, it is that you watch this video till the last second. Don't let anyone tell you what is the content of this video, because the whole world has been on standstill after the son of Hamas, one of the major founders of the Hamas movement, came out to speak truth to power for everyone to see and hear. He actually went ahead to explain his ordeal in his father's house when the Hamas movement was found. He went ahead to explain the mission of the Hamas movement, and he said some strong words. You don't want to miss it. Do well to sit back and get this detail for yourself, because I really do not want to say more than this. But don't go anywhere, because I'll be coming back at the end of this video to explain what my findings are as I connected the dots to this video. My name is Moses and this is Think Tank TV.
Today I can speak on the authority of a Palestinian child, someone who grew up in that culture. Hamas' first crime against children in the Palestinian societies is not arming them or encouraging them to carry suicide bombing attacks. It's the religious, ideological indoctrination that I had to go through. With one intention in mind: to annihilate the state of Israel. This is Hamas' primary goal. In this truth, there is no confusion. I speak as first-hand witness on Hamas and their intention. My father is one of the founders of Hamas movement. I was there when Hamas was born. I was before Hamas was born. And as I said before, I will be there after Hamas is dead. I am not a part of propaganda. I don't work for nobody. I only represent myself. And on this authority I speak. So don't be mistaken and take my words very carefully. Hamas is committing a crime against this generation and the next generations to come. So blaming Israel is not going to solve the problem. Imagine a 10-year-old child. When I disobeyed Hamas, I was tied up to a post, and I was whipped by Hamas top leader, and I don't want to mention his name because he's not worthy. With the electric cable, every lash, I lost my breath until I lost my consciousness. My father was in prison at that time, and this leader thought that he was my mentor. This is Hamas discipline. This is how they wanted me to be. To become a violent savage like them. And the very basic intelligence of a child, when I felt that was not natural, it wasn't, but I had still to go to the mosque to please my mother and please my father and obey this type of monsters. I hate to talk about my personal struggle, and I hate to be in a position to be at defense. He also don't like to be at defense, because this is what Hamas did to Israel on October 7th. They put all of us at defense. But this doesn't mean that we are not going to win the war. Growing up in that society, majority of the Palestinians blamed Israel. And as a child, I took it as a Quran. I took it as a holy scripture that Israel was our problem. But then as I grew up, I start identifying the enemy within. The religious authorities, the corrupt leaderships, who basically did not care about children, they did not care about Palestinians, they still don't care about nobody but themselves. And the world has been empowering them against the prey, against the victims. This has to come to an end. Let's put my childhood on the side, because maybe a child does not see things for what they are. Maybe I was very bad. I misbehaved myself as a child to deserve to be beaten up again and again and again by Hamas leaders. And some people say, is it a personal problem? Well, it is a personal problem. Do you have any problem with me having Hamas problem as a personal problem? It is a personal problem. And I swear I will not die before I see Hamas dead. Can I make this a goal to my life? You know, unlike many of the leaders who sit here and give Hamas legitimacy by not condemning them, if the entire world stand there and say otherwise, the child witness within will always be there, and nobody can deceive that child anymore. Then, as I grew up, I become the Hamas or the Islamic student movement president in our town, and I became part of the movement. It's just out of the love for my father and our family. I had no other choice, which somehow led me to imprisonment at the age of 18, just a few weeks after my 18th birthday. May 28, 1996. My problem was not Israel who arrested me during that experience. It was Hamas again, but this time with a lot more brutality, a lot more pain than the pain I experienced on a personal level. In prison, Hamas tortured and killed hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, Hamas members, because Hamas had suspicion that they were collaborating with the state of Israel. I spent 16 months in that first arrest among Hamas leaders. What was called Al-Majd, Hamas security wing, for those who don't know, this division of Hamas. This security wing, they brutally tortured people, putting needles under their fingernails, burning plastic on their bodies, putting off cigarettes in their skin. screams of hundreds of prisoners over that period of time. How could I forget? And I don't wish for any of you to go through such experience to realize what type of monster we are dealing with. It's unfortunate that my father helped establish such an organization. And I don't mean to dishonor him. I love my father and I will always do. I'm not here to dishonor my people. I love my people. But I cannot believe how far Hamas was able to travel in this madness, and we could not stop them. After I was released from prison, I made very hard choices. And I don't have the time to go through all my motives, but yes, I had many motives. Many motives to fight against Hamas, and I still do. Nobody can get in my way. Not even the United Nations.
This is remarkable, Jesus. It means that this guy is actually like a monster, a demon.
So the choices I made were against any rational mind. I ended up working together with the Israeli intelligence for 10 years. We had a common goal. That goal was to stop suicide bombing attacks. Hamas, for those who don't know, or those who have short memory, did many suicide bombing attacks during the 90s and the early 2000s. Dozens of suicide bombing attacks where a suicide bomber took an explosive built went to inside a bus and blew himself up, killing all type of people. Not only Israelis. Americans were killed. Europeans were killed. Other nationalities, including Israeli Arabs, including Muslims. Hamas did not differentiate. Take Hotel Park, for example. On a holiday, on the most sacred Jewish holiday, a suicide bomber go into the dinner, blow himself up, kill more than 30 people. Some Holocaust survivors died in that attack. Dolphinarium, some teenagers having fun at the beach. Hamas suicide bomber killed about 18 and wounded dozens. Look up, see how many buses. It did not stop there. Hamas attacked the Hebrew University. 6 Americans were killed in that attack. They targeted synagogues. They targeted everywhere. Knowing the Israeli retaliation, they invite violence, they love violence. Hamas, without chaos, cannot survive. It's their climate. This is where they thrive. When the peace process came, if you follow the history of Hamas and their development or their evolution, whatever you want to call it, Hamas, what sabotaged the peace process through suicide bombing attacks.
Jesus.
And they don't have a vision. That's the problem. Because nobody can satisfy their ambition when they are waging a holy war. We're not talking about IRA. We're not talking about other political terrorist organizations that we can pressure them, bend them, bring them to the negotiating table. We are talking about a religious group that does not believe in political borders, that wants to annihilate an entire race in order to build an Islamic state.
Oh, this is just too much.
I don't know what else can be said about this group. And I don't know why it's not obvious to everybody that the United Nations failed to condemn them. Bunch of rapists. This is what they are. Lower than animal consciousness. So, I don't speak only on the authority of that child and someone who grew up in the Palestinian territory. I also speak on the authority of someone who has 10 years of experience in a counter-terrorism of the Israeli intelligence. It took us 8 years to capture someone by name Ibrahim Hamid. This mass murderer. 8 years he hid in a small town of Ramallah, less than 20,000 people. It took us 8 years to capture him. While he was sending suicide bombers every other day, it was a big nightmare to capture him. And you know now what they are doing? Why the hostage situation that we have in Gaza? They want him. He's on the top of the list to be released. Ibrahim Hamid, remember his name? Look him up. They want mass murderers to go back to the street. And if you ask yourself, the guy that you saw earlier, Yahya Sinwar, with the child and the rifle, this guy was released just recently, part of the prisoner exchange with Israel. When Israel had to release more than 1,000 Hamas members to return one Israeli soldier back to his mother. And Hamas had a taste to that. So they thought this time they can go and bring 200 hostages and more. So they can bring the only true democracy in the Middle East to its knees. This is why it's a very brutal war. For those who are in the intelligence communities, they understand the significance of this. And they know that that Israel cannot release more Hamas terrorists. Because this guy, you saw, Yahya Sinwar, he is the mastermind behind the attacks on October 7th. And how can Israel afford, or how can any of you validate or prove the release of mass murderers back to the street so they can carry a lot more terrorist attacks and hijack an entire society, use hundreds of thousands of people as human shields?
Wow, this is amazing. This is amazing.
Is this our way of solving the problem?
No, it can't be. It can't be.
We need the correct vision.
It can't be.
First of all, we need to identify the origins of suffering, where it's coming from, where does it originate from. We need to identify the disease. Then we can provide the cure. Up to this point, we haven't identified the disease. And for those who know the problem, they don't have the courage to stand and say, we have a problem with Hamas.
Play politics with everything.
But most of us have our own calculations. From Russia to China to the rest of the superpowers, given Hamas cover. Hamas gave the attacks on October 7th as a birthday gift to Putin.
This is serious.
For those who did not make the connection. And I don't want to go farther. Now nobody's talking about Ukraine, using Hamas as the wild card in the Middle East, igniting a religious war to just divert your attention somewhere else. All those criminals, whether they were high profile or low profile, they are all savages. They are all enemies of children and enemies of humanity. The United Nations and the rest of the international community have empowered con men who used what's so-called Palestinian cause to become richer. They were seeking power and wealth. They did not care about the Palestinian people. As the children of Gaza sink in despair and poverty, leaders of Hamas, along with their families and their entourage, enjoy the Four Seasons Hotel in Doha, Qatar. We can continue putting our head in the sand, but then we have escaped our responsibility. I can go on and on for hours, or should I say for 6 years of my life. But I don't have the time. I don't have the time.
I hope you've heard it for yourself. Now here's what my findings are. For starters, he said something that amazed me. He said the October 7th attack on Israel was a gift to Putin. How remarkable indeed. Now I began to connect some dots, and I found out, like he also said, that Putin and Qatar are behind the Hamas movement. That is to say, they are part of the major organizations, they are part of the major countries funding the Hamas movement. Where does that leave you? Recall that some days ago we shared a video of Julius Malema. Yes, I've been a fan of Julius Malema, but we shared a video of Julius Malema who has come out to say that he reprimands Israel and called for the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant on Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, for war crimes. We also saw just yesterday that the South African government formally reprimanded Israel for the attack on Gaza, stating that the International Criminal Court should issue an arrest warrant to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, because the crimes he has committed in Gaza has superseded the crimes that Putin has committed in Ukraine. Where does that leave you? It automatically means that South Africa has taken sides with Putin. We all know about the coup that have been happening in most of these African countries, the likes of Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Gabon, and all of them. Now, it's a no-brainer to know that Putin was one of the masterminds behind this coup. Yes, we want revolution. Yes, we want a change in Africa. But here's what you must know. We must tread cautiously. Why? Because he who pays the piper dictates the tune. I believe that this is exactly how most of our African leaders had begun to believe in some of their colonial masters for gains that they would have. Of course, Putin would not just be investing in all these African countries. He would obviously have an interest, which may not be put out right now for people to get to know. But the truth is that he has an interest. What is that interest? So if we begin to look at his antecedents and most of his actions, you will find out that this guy has an ulterior motive to humanity as a whole. And here's a call to Julius Malema. Yes, I've been one of his fans. Yes, we post his videos. But the truth of the matter is that we have always said that we will say it how it is for the world to hear and for the world to see. Here's a call to Julius Malema and the South African president to immediately begin to check their moves with Putin, the Russian president. You never can completely determine his intentions in the African continent. In as much as he's giving you the required fund and support, you must check it to make sure that we do not ignorantly find ourselves in the hands of another colonial masters that may be worse than the one we ever had before. Please, if you want to go to the comment section, let's get to know what your thinking is, because these issues are of utmost importance. And if you begin to understand the matrix of the international politics, you will get to understand what we're trying to share here. My name is Moses, and this is Think Tank TV. Thank you so much to all our viewers and returning subscribers. We do not take it lightly. See you on our next video. Bye for now.